It is your time, Husker Nation. Pull up a chair, get comfortable. We got Justin here, of course, for Huskers Live right here at the Voice of College Football. Leave those comments and questions there in the chat. We appreciate super chat contributions, of course. Thank you so much for all that you do. You know you're going to like the show. You might as well just hit the like button right now. Get that out of the way as well. Justin Adams here, of course, from the Big Ten Show. It's right here on YouTube and also Cheesy Corn Sports. Catch the work that these guys are doing right now. He and Sonny on the Big Ten Show.
Yes,
Justin,
sir.
what's going on?
Not a whole lot. If you slide over there right now, there's a basketball upload. My computer was giving me issues this week, but we will have a video coming on there very soon for y'all. So if you want to slide over Big Ten Show and get over there before we do the Nebraska program overview. And also, if you don't mind dropping a like here from me and Mark.
So you're going to take it on yourself to take on the Nebraska program overview.
Oh, yeah.
You think you can handle that one?
Oh, no. Yeah. That one's for that channel. And then
Sure.
We can do our program overview the entire offseason on our live streams. So
that's why we're here, folks.
Yep.
So lock it in Tuesday night, 7 Eastern, 6 Central. Here we go. We've got Glen Thomas, and we also had quarterbacks that met with the media this week. And what is your take?
Yeah, the QBs got up there. Glen Thomas, Satterfield got up there, and they shed a lot of light into not only some of the stuff that they're working on. Harburg especially touched on some mechanical stuff that they're working on with him. But overall, you kind of got a feel for how the QB room is transitioning with the young bodies in there and kind of how things are coming along with the young guys, with Heinrich Harburg in there and stuff like that. And, what Glen Thomas kind of went into was, he's trying to really work on processing and, putting them in bad looks or, putting them in against looks that they may not have the right play drawn up for, etc. What they're trying to do is put them in a little bit of tight situations and make it to where, they don't have the perfect play drawn up for the defense or the shell coverage there. So that way they have to stick to what they know, run through their progressions, kind of, refine that quarterback IQ to adjust and make the play. And so they shed a lot of light into the fact that Glen Thomas and Satterfield, for what they are, a little bit different coaching, of course. Glen Thomas, more in tune with the quarterbacks, getting more into the mechanical stuff. But Satterfield's also in the room with them, very much in the room with them. And they've spoken to just kind of what we talked about before with Matt Rule and these connections and the staff that he's worked with before and kind of the communication being the same. And outside of a couple of little nuanced things, it seemed to be echoed that one of the things that's helping them the most is the fact that it is kind of the same terminology. It's the same structure. It's the same systems between Sat and Glen Thomas. It wasn't like they brought somebody in and they're kind of having to learn, a new coach speak while trying to develop, the young guys in the quarterback room. He said they're cohesive right now. They are working together, staying self-motivated, which is the biggest thing. And they're talking through scenarios with each other. And Harburg, he said Harburg's taking this kind of like, a competitor. He's there. He's being a leader for those young guys. He's mentoring them. He's helping them with what he knows. And, he's communicating effectively with them. And he's said he knows when it's time to lead, and he knows also when he can ask questions. He can learn something from these guys as well. But I really like the way Glen Thomas was really talking about specific quarterback stuff. We didn't get that a lot from Satterfield. I just feel like Satterfield was spread so thin between the tight ends, quarterbacks, and OC role that now that he's kind of focusing on the tight ends and is kind of a liaison between, the quarterback room and, he can kind of peek in there and stuff like that while Glen Thomas really works on development of these guys. It's going to make a night and day difference. was a couple of weird questions in there that I was just like, somebody asked, like, how do you communicate with the elite athletes when they've come in here and been told like but Glen Thomas worked with Matt Ryan and stuff like that. So I don't foresee him having an issue talking to an 18-year-old kid about developing his skill set. And he also said he takes their input on stuff though. But he said what it basically is with the quarterback position when you come in there, when Glen Thomas comes in there and he has a thought of what he wants it to look like, but then you have quarterbacks that have been coached a certain way up until that point. You don't want to completely reinvent the wheel, especially when they need to really develop quickly to get ready for, this season as a true freshman. And so he says they try to kind of meet in the middle. He's going to get some ideas of what's comfortable for them and get more information about them. But right now it's just about reps, execution. That's why they have the team split up the way they do. They basically broke the team up into 3 teams. They have, 6 units playing across the 3 fields. They had the offense, defense, and it was split up, between starters and other guys, the guys who were banged up or injured, which nobody's really injured right now. It's a lot of precautionary stuff. Those guys were kind of coaching and little things like that. And they alluded to that a little bit where it's coaches coaching players. It's coaches coaching players and players also coaching players. Right. And that's kind of what he wants to instill. And that's where Matt Rule says you kind of build the foundation and the structures when you have not only coaches policing the players, but players policing each other. And that's where the development really starts to happen, because all these players start to learn a little bit from each other. All these older, these upperclassmen are instilling what they've learned over their time here. And they've learned some hard lessons into these younger guys. And it's showing, because we have guys like Mario Buford, getting out there and running the CB2 spot and picking up interceptions on film. And it's, a lot of these young guys are already stepping into roles that, like the cornerback 2, for instance, Malcolm Hartzog, I talked about, I thought that he was going to transition to safety. Well, he's fully transitioned to safety. But that's a good sign in terms of what they're seeing in the cornerback room, because, if you're willing to move one of your cornerbacks to safety like that, that means the young guys are showing that they can hold their own, and they trust those guys. And so the Glen Thomas overall, I liked what he had to say, gave a lot of insight. He really went into the details. What he was talking about is certain with Harburg, for instance. And I wanted to kind of break this down a little bit in detail, because Harburg talked about elbow drop when you're a quarterback. And these are some of the little things, because I've been praising Harburg as much as people can, because for the situation that he was put into, it was kind of a really tough situation for him. And he is a football player, and he is a football player who can throw the ball. He's not really a refined quarterback necessarily, but the guy is a gamer, and he goes out there and he makes plays. He does what it takes to win. And he talked about even wearing down over the course of the season. By the Purdue game, he was talking about he had taken on a lot of hits because he was running 20-25 times a game. But just to explain a little bit further what they meant by elbow drop and mechanically what you can kind of look for in seeing if the transition was right or seeing how the transition is coming along. And I'll pull up a couple of screenshots in a second. But when they're talking about elbow drop, and you can see this on a couple of his throws, this is why the consistency is not there, especially on the intermediate and the deep throws. What happens is essentially when you're quarterbacking and you want the ball in the numbers, and then you're essentially everything's from the lower body. You're not really doing much with your arm. It's just kind of a kinetic. You're linking the kinetic chain together, and this kind of like you use your lower body to kind of fling your arm, and it's all about wrist and rotation. And so what they're talking about is when he has the ball here and drops back, he's kind of dropping the elbow down. And what happens when you drop your elbow is you come more over the top, and the elbow doesn't pass through like it should. You want your elbow almost towards your target. and the ball should come as tight to the collarbone and the ear as possible. When you're getting a little bit too out here, that's when you start to airmail throws, and then when you're not disciplined with this arm, your front shoulder gets all out of whack. And so when you finish with your front shoulder, you want to finish almost like this, right? You want this tight and you want this up by this collarbone. What you'll see on a lot of his throws too is, since he's not disciplined with the elbow and he comes out like this front part opens up and the arm finishes down here. And essentially what that's going to do is it's going to pull throws. What it is mechanically, you want to keep everything as tight as possible, and little hitch in the motion as possible, little drop in the motion as possible. That's where consistency comes from. And you can see a little bit in Dylan Raiola and stuff like that. Raiola's more so finishing here. And I looked at film from Harburg last year, and he finishes down here. And he also finishes open like this instead of closed. So those little details are going to be night and day. But Harburg, has about, he's been there for a while. He's got about one season left to learn this mechanical stuff. But what he's struggling with is the fact that when you've played for that long and you really have worked so hard on those mechanics that they become second nature to you, that when you try to change up mechanically, he's struggling with that because you go back to instinct. And basically what it is as a quarterback, it's drill, 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 right? Like you just repeat the motion over and over till it becomes second nature, because when you're in the game, when you hear the moment, you're throwing. You're not really thinking about, I don't want to drop my elbow. I want to bring my arm tight. I want to, finish with my thumb down so I know I'm rotating, getting the spiral. And that is a lot of the things that caused the issues last year. And I'm curious just to see how quickly they can kind of develop that stuff with him and see if they can really get him into a little bit more of a refined passer. And, who knows, maybe by the spring, we start to see the fruits of their labor paying off. He's starting to make a lot of these throws he was missing last year. There's just the problems last year. If you're not consistent with your mechanics, you're not going to be consistent with your throws. And, it wasn't all his fault. The receivers weren't the greatest. Our line was improved, but there were moments where he was running for his life still. He did what he had to do. But I really like that they're opening up about what they're working on specifically and stuff that we can actually look for, albeit there's a little bit of an over-analysis right now of the QB throws happening that we have, Kalen throwing. There's some video out of Kalen throwing dimes. Kalen actually connected with Isaiah Nair on a deep touchdown. I believe he also connected with, oh my God, I'm drawing a blank, but Kalen made some great throws. Raiola was off on some throws, but also made some good throws. Not everything was on him. Some of it was timing from the receivers. But from what I've seen and heard, Kalen was kind of the best thrower. So Danny Dimes out there causing a stir and really kind of putting his name on the map. And he's confident as can be. He stepped up the podium. And one of the questions that bothers me too, again, and if you have any questions, I'll just kind of let you ask in a second. But one of the things that bothers me is when a reporter asks a question to a kid like Daniel Kalen, and he's like, coming in here like as the underdog and all this other stuff, to Raiola. But I just feel like that's kind of discounting and taking away from what Daniel Kalen has to offer, because he's no slouch. He was a Elite 11 quarterback, 4-star. And so, he's like, I don't see myself as an underdog. He's coming in here to compete just like anybody else. It's not like he's a walk-on coming here to compete against a 5-star. And so, it's not surprising to hear the good things out of him, but just, I feel like asking questions like that is just kind of dismissing what he has to offer. And I'm happy that he's going out there and showing, his arm and the throws he can make, and connect him with, these new guys like Isaiah Nair is huge. I think a lot of what they're going to have to do is build up these connections with these guys, because that's where Raiola's missing a lot. Just getting that repetitive things. NFL players work a lot in the off season, running routes and all this other stuff. And that's just something they're going to have to do in time with the football. And that's why, Raiola and Kalen threw, I think today, and Harburg didn't. And that's probably just because of getting those guys those reps. It's just, trying to let those guys get better by playing football like they've always said. And yeah, we're going to start seeing kind of what they're working on. Finally, some developmental things here in the coming weeks. So a lot to be excited about in regards to that. And Raiola got there up there as well. And yeah, had a few things to say, but I'll go into the rest of that here in a little bit. But yeah, a lot of exciting stuff from them there.
So, Justin, to piggyback on what you just talked about in regards to reporters' questions, knowing that, hey, one guy is supposed to be the starter, he's the 5-star, somebody else is a little less regarded, even though he's still highly regarded, Danny Kaelin. That, and we'll never know how much this plays into evaluation because we all have our internal biases. But when you know that one guy is supposed to be it versus another guy who's a strong recruit, but still not quite what the other guy is supposed to be, whether that clouds in any way the judgment, what the coaches do to try to filter out that thought process of this guy is supposed to be the guy. I may be seeing some things that aren't necessarily there because I'm expecting to see them, or maybe they're tougher in their evaluation because they're expecting so much and to be so wowed by Raiola that if they're a little bit underwhelmed or they see the two players closer than they anticipated, then that surprises them possibly.
Yes. And also, like, you see a lot of people saying, "Oh, well, they didn't pay, Raiola all this money to come here and sit." But Rule is very much the type of coach that is going to make you earn it. And if Kalen earns it, then he's going to get the spot. And like you said, like, a lot of people have it fixated on what they believe to be the case, where Raiola is going to be the clear-cut starter. And I've said that too. But I won't say that, like, there's not going to be any competition and that Danny Kaelin can't push for that. And if it doesn't matter about money, Rule is the type of coach that whoever performs the best, whoever plays football the best, whoever gives them the best chance to win is who's going to be out there. And so I don't think we can necessarily discount Daniel Kaelin. I still think Raiola is the front runner, of course, because right now they're doing a lot of stuff and, shorts, not contact yet. And so we'll see when they get out there and the reps are a little bit more live and the contact starts to come. Of course, they're probably not going to be able to hit the quarterbacks too terribly much, but at least a little bit of contact, right? And to get something in your face, get some pressure. They're not going to be taking them down, of course, but just kind of getting in their chest or something and just seeing how they operate in those throws is going to be key too, because throwing from a fairly clean pocket in shorts is one thing, but going out there and having to really make those quick decisions, they're working on a lot of, pre-shell coverages, because one of the biggest transitions from high school to college to the NFL is in high school, they don't really disguise a lot of the defenses. But in college, they'll come out, let's say they come out in a cover 2 shell, right? They come out with an open look cover 2 shell where you have the safeties here. But when the play, when they run the play, all of a sudden you have a cornerback transition here. And instead of playing halves, you got them playing thirds and they're rotated into a cover 3. And then all of a sudden, what you thought the play was going to look like is no longer there. That route that you have up the seam or up the middle of the field is not there anymore. Now you have to look more so in the flats and the underneath the thirds, or have a play where you're kind of crossing those guys up. So that's going to be one of the biggest things for them to learn is recognizing open closed coverages, cover 2, cover 3, cover 1, all that stuff, and then adjusting on the fly and having the ability to just quickly process those situations. So they're doing a lot of the right things with these guys. But yeah, I don't see Dylan as just being the guy he's going to run over Kalen. I think Kalen's going to battle strong, and it's going to be a battle up until the end of spring, in my opinion.
Folks, leave a response to this question if you can come up with some quarterbacks who started as true freshmen. So CJ Stroud did not. Bryce Young did not.
Trevor Lawrence did, right?
Okay, so I was going to bring up Trevor Lawrence. Trevor
Mhm.
Lawrence did after about 4 games. So
Fields
Kelly Bryant
did.
was the starter, and then after about 4 games, even though Clemson had not lost a game, yeah, Dabo made the switch. Trevor Lawrence wins a national championship.
Yep.
Deshaun Watson, the same thing. He did not start right out of the gate. It was oh shoot, Cole. I can't think of his name. Anyway, at Clemson. So yeah, about 4 or 5 games in, Deshaun Watson in his true freshman season got the start. Uh, Bo Nix was a game 1 starter at Auburn his first year, and actually threw a game-winning touchdown pass against Oregon on the final play of the game, his
Yep.
first game in college. But there aren't a lot of first-year true freshmen starting quarterbacks in week 1.
There's not. No. And that's where, and I think that's the urgency here. I think that's the urgency with them, like, even to the point where, they don't have Harburg necessarily throwing out there. They're just trying to get these guys all the reps that they can. And it's for that reason alone. It's, those guys, I do think the schedule early on helps. The fact that, again, they're not playing against a bunch of stout defenses early on. Those are very winnable games for the first 6, games of the season. That'll be big for developing them. But like you said, like, it doesn't happen a lot. And the biggest concern is you really, and I don't think either one of these guys are short of confidence at all. I don't feel like either one of these guys are going to be rattled. But you do run the risk, because we see this sometimes when a quarterback gets drafted in the NFL, goes to the wrong team, where they kind of lose that confidence, or they get the yips a little bit. The yips being, it's a baseball term too, where it's just kind of like they're in their head about it. Pitchers get the yips, and all of a sudden they go from a 1.3 ERA to a 4.6.
Well, it's basically, yeah, you're not allowing, there's a mental block that does not allow your natural ability and talent to flow, where you're delivering. It's usually with throwing that
Yep.
you're not delivering the ball with fluidity and letting it just cut loose and doing it naturally based on instinct. That it's a mental block. Yep.
Yeah, because when you start making mistakes, and you're like, I need to stop making mistakes. That's when you run into that block. And so you do always run that risk. And especially at a university like Nebraska, where it is a big stage and all that other stuff, it's always a risk. But again, I don't see these guys as the type to be rattled if they do struggle early on. So, but again, it's just a risk that they're probably going to have to take. And I do see Raiola, he's got enough, I guess, games against top competition, in high school and stuff like that, to where he really is one of those guys that, 33 touchdowns and 1 interception, playing at Buford against, high level competition. That's usually not a guy who gets rattled very easily. And so we'll see. Oh yeah, my camera, it just decided I want to. Hey, we're back. All right. And but yeah, so I see a lot of good in just hearing Raiola speak at the podium. He was talking about just kind of what I talked about earlier, catching up to the speed of the game. You know, one of the things is, getting to know, and he said this before the throws even happened, getting to know them, get comfortable with the receivers. He even said the O-line is doing very good at getting protection set where they need to. The running backs are running hard. But they all three talked about the QB room being a very close, tight-knit room. And, they go out golf together. They go play Madden together. They talk to each other about, protections and schemes, because Raiola and Kalen, of course, have to catch up on the schemes, understand the protections. And, with Harburg's experience, he talked about how lucky he is that they have them in there. But his biggest thing is up getting up to the speed of the game, catching up to the speed of the receivers even, but taking the younger guys with him and on as he ascends, and just trying to focus on football. Not a lot of distractions. He was talking about this stood out to me when talking about the 6 a.m. workouts where he was getting out there and throwing with these receivers, when they didn't have practice or what they had to do till 10 o'clock. The way he put it is he's like, these guys want to get out there and work. And if they want to get out and work, I'm going to be there for my guys. But the way he put it really much, he said it shows how dedicated his receivers are, right? And that right there is, he's not saying it shows how dedicated I am, right? He's not talking about himself being out there at 6 a.m. He's like, shows how dedicated these receivers are. And to me, that's a leader, right? And it's such a small thing, but to me, it is the little small things. Words are important, right? It is the small things that determine a leader versus, because a leader is going to, somebody who portrays himself as a leader is going to get out there. They're going to try to say all the right things. But what do they say when they're not trying to say the right things? And that to me stood out because in the fact that he's like, I'm going to be there for my guys. If they want to be out there, I'm going to be out there. And that's the type of guy that you need to be out there, especially as a true freshman, because again, reps, and catching up with these receivers. And it showed a little bit in some of the reps where the receivers were a little bit faster than, maybe he expected, some throws behind him or some timing stuff. But all of that's going to help that get better. And I just love the overall camaraderie and what they're talking about as far as how close and tight knit the QB room is and how they're getting along with these receivers, et cetera. So
we take your comments and questions, everyone. We appreciate the super chat contributions as well. We talk Huskers football with all of you each and every Tuesday, 7 Eastern and 6 Central. Look out for Justin's videos throughout the week, and also catch Justin and Sonny over on the Big Ten Show. It's right here on YouTube, because everything that you were just outlining from a leadership standpoint, it's not that, okay, you're a freshman cornerback and sure, that's a lot of responsibility and that's a big mountain to climb at a big program to gain any starting position, but you kind of do your own thing, learn the defense, learn your technique, focus on yourself, versus the quarterback having to do that, but kind of being responsible for everybody at the same time, being looked at as a leader. Even if you're not one, you better become one, because it's just kind of goes along with the job to a certain extent. You're responsible for the offense, and you're calling the play. You're not calling the play. You're not making a decision on the play, but you're communicating the play. You're getting everyone, making sure everybody's lined up. We know what it is as a quarterback, and to try to improve your own game, focus on your own development, but then also keep in mind that, hey, everybody's looking at me, watching me, and I've got to be that guy at the same time. It's a lot riding on these guys.
Yep. But I think the biggest key there is just the fact that he is pushing himself, and iron sharpens iron. I think having Raiola and Kalen is going to be what pushes these guys hard this spring and gets them ready. But yeah, it's and Kalen even talked about where, very similar to what Raiola said, it's first off, he did mention that he's a completely different quarterback already since Glen Thomas got there. So for anyone that was wondering about the development and stuff like that, Kalen said it himself. He's a completely different quarterback already. And Glen hasn't been there that long. Kalen hasn't been on campus that long. But he did mention that they're pushing each other. And right now he's just working on being the best player he can be. And that's another thing. These guys aren't worried about competing with each other. They're trying to be the best versions of themselves. And I think that's truly what's going to, now they are going to get competitive, of course, as the spring goes along. But I think the coaching staff has their minds in the right place and is like, don't worry about winning the job right now. That's going to happen later in the spring. They're not even to the point where they're probably really even evaluating these guys to that level. They're trying to just work on catching them up to speed on things. And so a lot of us are going to sit there and try, and a lot of fans are going to try to sit there and dice these apart and be like, oh, this person's ahead, this person's behind. But the coaches, they're not evaluating these guys to that level just yet. They are going to make sure that they refine them as much as possible. They're going to get them up to speed as much as possible. And then as we get later on to spring, they're going to start to evaluate closer onto the spring game. And it's just going to be a rep by rep thing. It's day in, day out who they're going to, it's whoever wins the day. And, Rule is, again, very much nobody's going to get preferential treatment. You're going to have to earn every rep. You're going to have to earn your spot. And, I think right now we shouldn't focus too much on necessarily who's going to be lead. Just focus on watching the development. When you see these little videos, look at the fundamentals. Look how better, they're throwing the ball. Look at how better the throwing motion is. Look at the little nuanced details, because they are all very much raw prospects when it comes to the quarterback position, even Harburg. And so there's a lot of development that can be had in the short amount of time.
Former Husker center and current Philadelphia Eagle Cam Jurgens made it to practice this week. I see that there were also a number of recruits who visited practice. Kearney linebacker Sawyer Shilk in San Francisco, St. Ignatius Prep offensive lineman John Mills. You hearing anything about recruiting? Anything regarding any targets?
Not too terribly much there, but one of the things was interesting, kind of like you mentioned. I believe it was last week. They had a guy at practice, kind of took his official visit to practice, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but wasn't really a guy who has any offers or anything like that. Just a big athletic guy. And it's interesting the way that Rule kind of invited him out to the practice and had him interacting, saw a little video of it and stuff like that. He's getting very creative with how he's working these recruits in, and he's definitely timing the visits to what he wants the recruits to see, what he wants the recruits to experience. I think that's another big thing there, is just like, kind of like you mentioned, bringing a couple guys in here and there to the practice, and they can see how these players are being coached. They get to see how these players are interacting with each other. They get to see the culture. They get to talk to the players, in that kind of environment where they're working. They're out there working on the field. It's not just taking them on a tour. They're seeing these things and they're interacting with the guys. And I think what that's going to do is kind of show these recruits just what these guys are talking about in terms of this team building, the amount of time they're spending together, building the relationships, and the development of them, and seeing some of these younger guys get out there and make these plays. They talked about pretty much, I believe everybody talked about Demetrius Bell, and like the coaches, the quarterbacks, everybody talked about Demetrius Bell getting out there and making plays. And Demetrius Bell, young guy, redshirt freshman, he's getting out there, and it's to the point where he was being mentioned, first, it's not going to beat out Jalen Lloyd, Isaiah Nair, or he's not going to be out Isaiah Nair, Jahmal Banks, but Demetrius Bell is definitely somebody who's going to be a big part of his offense too. So a lot of things there where these guys are seeing these younger guys develop and stepping to 1 and 2 roles, and maybe that gets them the juice that they need to be able to go and say like, oh, I can compete on this team early on, or I like the way they're developing these guys, or I like the way they're coaching these guys, et cetera, et cetera.
We released wide receiver rankings in the Big Ten a few days ago. See if the Huskers snuck anyone into the top 10.
I don't, man. The way it's going to be is it's definitely not going to be. Did you made the rankings, right?
Yes, I did.
So I do think the best receiver on Nebraska is going to be Jahmal Banks next year, of course. But I don't think his Wake Forest stats necessarily, unless it was going by film, which you can't realistically watch film on all these guys. I might have him somewhere in that top 20 range, but I doubt any of them currently are going to make it.
Okay.
Where's your first one at?
I got Jahmal Banks at 10.
Oh, do you? Okay. Yeah,
I do.
I was thinking probably top 15, but yeah. So, all right, I like your rankings then already because it's not just looking at stats, box scores, it's taking everything into account because again, Wake Forest, that offense is not indicative of passing numbers or volume. They really don't have a great quarterback there. So, looking at his numbers and just judging by that is not much to write home about. Even those numbers are really good, even in that system. But yeah, Jahmal Banks, I really don't think people are weighing in just how important of a snag he was. Isaiah Nair was important, but I don't think Isaiah Nair's impact would be near as big as it is without Jahmal Banks having committed. Because I remember Isaiah Nair committed first, and I was like, please tell me that doesn't mean Jahmal Banks is not committing. Please tell me we land both these guys. And we did. And they're going to open each other up so much. And I think Isaiah Nair is going to be the perfect complement to Jahmal Banks. And we've already seen it in some of these throws in practice. They connected with Jahmal Banks a couple times. Again, they got Isaiah Nair out on the deep touchdown pass. So yeah, Isaiah Nair is just going to be a playmaker all over the field. It's going to be fun to watch him.
Accent, thank you so much for the 2 spot there. Hope you fellas have a great night. You as well, sir.
Appreciate that.
We've got Dave checking in. Appreciate Dave. Is Nebraska doing better in recruiting in Texas? Since you guys left the Big 12, you've been having a hard time recruiting in that state. Thanks for that, Dave.
Yes, so very much so. When we moved from the Big 12 to the Big 10, Texas really kind of got lost as a pipeline state. And, we went through the whole Flobraska, the Florida thing, the Calabraska. We retired.
Mike Riley.
Yeah, we retired the state Braska nicknames because they never seemed to pan out. We're still in Florida though. But what Rule did early on is he did a lot of small stuff in really hiring coaches, big name coaches that are in the state of Texas and kind of almost like recruiting analyst type of roles where they are kind of, they have the connections out there in Texas. And of course, Matt Rule has the connections from Baylor. And that's also how he knows a lot of these high school coaches. And so early on, when he got hired, he started doing outreach and he started really getting, those guys into positions to where he could utilize them. And it shows in the fact that last year's class outside of the state of Nebraska, I believe the most recruits were from the state of Texas. And next year, it's Texas and Florida behind Nebraska. I think 33% of the recruiting class this year was from in-state, which is the most important thing. But even looking towards next year, last I looked at the offer sheet, I believe they have the most offers out in Texas. Second most is in Florida. So they are making it a point to really, really, really attack the state of Texas first and foremost, because it's no secret. The most NFL talent is out of the state of Texas. The most first round picks have come out of the state of Texas. And what they're doing is they've talked about utilizing kind of the speed in Florida, those type of guys, and getting, to the Texas guys. The Texas guys are, there's a lot of different styles of guys in Texas, but the thing about Texas is it's such a hard state in terms of competition that these guys have been going against, some of these guys have been going against really, really elite competition just in their, the state alone and their region alone, that a lot of guys come out of there more refined and more ready for the college game. And, just think about Raiola trying to go to a big name school out in Georgia. Of course, it was close to campus, but he didn't want to go to some school where he could light it up and throw for 60 touchdowns. He went to Buford where he could really work on himself against top of the top competition, which, is only going to make him better. And that's what, it's no secret to it. It's one of those things. It's like, you got to recruit with the big dogs. You have to recruit out of these big states because time and time again, We see NFL talent coming out of these states for a reason. And so that's where you're going to find your talent. That is very much a perfect comparison as to what is coming out of the state at the college level too.
And I got to say, I'm not a recruiting guy, but by extension, what I do is I'm constantly looking at recruiting rankings. I'm looking at individual recruits with the conversations that I have every day. And my goodness, going to your town of Houston and that area,
Yep.
it's just
Crazy.
unbelievable.
It's crazy.
Katy and Richmond and all these places
West
around the
Orange
Houston
Start.
area. It seems like they've got 4 and 5 stars, walking down the street, both sides every day. It's
Yep. I actually played against Earl Thomas. He played at West Orange Stark, and I played against Earl Thomas. He played quarterback, punt returner, kick returner, safety. Yeah, the dude played all over the field. I tackled him. No, I didn't tackle him. I escorted him out of bounds on a kick return, so I got credit.
it's officially a tackle.
It counted. So I can always
Well
say
done. Well done.
But yeah, it's a different ball game out there. It's a whole nother level. And yeah, I've seen somebody say high school stadiums in Texas bigger than a lot of college stadiums. Not a joke. I believe it was Allen who made the huge, I forget how much it cost, but it is the size, is bigger than a lot of small college stadiums. And they built it, and then they had foundational issues and cracks in the concrete, so it didn't even like open up for another year. And even since then, more bigger ones have opened up. So there's so much money and there's so much talent going into these guys, and it's very much football first out there. So yeah, it's an important question. The fact that Texas has to be utilized for Nebraska to be successful. That was no secret as to where they lost their recruiting base that really made it suffer. And I think that was more so the issue than just the switch to the Big Ten and go into the different style of play. I think it was more so losing, that pipeline and revamping the entire style of the team. Okay. So, some in the comments said, Allen is a $58 million stadium. Crazy. Absurd. But, Michael Terry again, Michael Terry coming in for a visit, the number one athlete in the state of Texas. So when you're building relationships like that with guys that are, Texas is pushing hard for, the A&Ms are pushing hard for, plucking these guys out of that state is no small task, because every college wants to dip their toes into, the Texases, the Floridas, the Californias, the Georgias, the Ohios, even. So yeah, it has to be. It's no secret. It has to be the focus.
I'm curious to get your answer on this next question. Not discarding any particular member of the coaching staff on either side, but is there a particular position coach that impresses you more so than the others?
Yeah. So I would probably say that's tough. Evan Cooper. I really like what Evan Cooper's done. Even in the recruiting front, I think Evan Cooper's the guy they have springboarding the Florida movement, but Evan Cooper has really got those guys, that secondary just up and going and firing on all cylinders. And they it's just that unit there is so much improved compared to what we had even a year ago or 2 years ago. Garrett McGuire was really he impressed me with what he did in terms of being such a young coach and still being able to lead and connect with, guys that are almost his age. Garrett McGuire is very, very young, and just I think it shows his ability to be a leader while still kind of being one of the guys with these guys because they, he talks about how they hang out at his office, and so that was a big concern to me was the communication with bringing in a guy that young, and you have, football. These guys do have egos. It's no secret. I mean, they were kings of their high schools, et cetera, et cetera, and so when you have a guy that young, there could be a butting of heads. It's like, you're only a few years older than me, 3 or 4 years older than me. How are you going to tell me what to do? That type of stuff. And there was none of that at all. It seems like they've embraced him, and he's embraced the receivers, and that communication impressed me because I was a little worried about that at first.
Appreciate y'all being here at the Voice of College Football. Please use the Amazon link. It's in the description section of all the videos, including this one. And what you do there is you just grab the link. And when you shop on Amazon, if you use that link, then we get a cut here at the Voice of College Football. So you don't spend any more money. You just take a few bucks away from Amazon and send it our way. So that's a good thing, I would think.
Yep.
So please do that.
Absolutely.
All right.
And then just a couple of other things, just little quick hitters from the rest of the post press conference. I saw somebody mention Mario Buford. Mario Buford has absolutely come on strong this spring. So Mario Buford, man, is somebody to really look out for. Of course, his brother, former player, and I think that's probably helped him because he was kind of able to give him an idea of what to expect, and he probably saw a lot of what his brother was doing, and was really able to kind of instill some of that in him. So Mario Buford coming along like really, really well. Jeremiah Charles, they're saying, is a natural fit at corner. Jeremiah Charles is ridiculously athletic. There was a video of him doing a backflip yesterday. It was crazy. The dude's just a freak athlete. He was the one who won the dunk contest. So yeah, they're talking about he's a natural fit at corner. And then Dwight Boodle, Dwight Boodle is also, really, really killing it. So these young guys, man, they're playing with a lot of confidence. And so, and Hartzog at safety, that move being him to safety, I think is going to be the biggest. I think it's going to be a help. The fact that we were able to get strong enough at cornerback where Buford can play where he probably should naturally play, which is at safety. That was, I felt like always, and a couple other people, have said this, felt like that was always his natural position. And it's going to just make the defense that much better. The fact that we're able to get people into the positions that they need to be in. I think last year it was a little bit of potentially. Oh, Jose, did I misspeak? I'm sorry. Did I say former player? My bad. I misspoke. But essentially what it's going to be is last year there was a lot of patchworking, and what that meant is some guys really had to stretch out of position a little bit than what their natural position was. And now we're going to get a lot of guys into their roles, and then also have the depth to be able to still move these guys around. Isaac Gifford, he's talking about one of the best defensive player or best players in the country at the the jack spot there. So yeah, a lot of exciting stuff, especially in the secondary. That's why Evan Cooper's probably the guy I'm most impressed by in terms of developing the players. Yeah, Jose, it was Boodle, the white Boodle. His brother is a former player.
Yeah, so folks, if you're watching us on X/Twitter, just realize we appreciate that. But if you join us on YouTube, you can ask questions, make comments, and join the chat as well. So just keep that in mind, although we are trying to branch out with a little bit more of an audience and more reach by getting on places like X. And I'm trying to add Instagram. Justin, you may need to show me how to go live on Instagram.
All
I
right.
don't know if you've ever tried that. Have you gone live on Instagram?
No, I probably figured it out though. It's probably a way to get the stream key.
I thought I had it figured out too, but maybe not.
Nothing Reddit can't show me how to do. That's my go-to for instructionals.
So we are looking to get more reach out there. So folks, for those of you watching us that love what we do here on Tuesday nights, any way you can give us a push, in your direction of the world. So you've got social media influence that neither Justin nor I have. You are in contact with people that don't know that we're here on Tuesday night. So please let them know.
Yep. And just for peace of mind within the fan base, they mentioned first priorities, Glen Thomas. First priorities of the season are going into the spring. No turnovers was the first thing you mentioned. Don't beat yourself before the snap. Pre-snap penalties, those things that really put you behind the sticks early on. Because that is something Nebraska has really struggled with too, is pre-snap penalties. Seems like time and time again, after a little momentum over the last few years, there's always a pre-snap penalty, or sometimes even on the first play of the game is a pre-snap penalty. And so really working on that stuff and doing your job and playing hard. And I think all of those things were what made Nebraska so much better last year is simply doing your job and playing hard. Because when you on defense, especially, what the defense did well is trusted the guy next to him. And so they very much were only focused on what they had to do on the field. And when you trust the guys to your left and your right, you can focus more on your assignment, because you're not then thinking like, oh, will I need to go, is there a liability out here? Do I need to pay attention to that just in case he blows the coverage or something like that? And that's how a defense works as a unit. And so doing their job and playing hard, it's very simple stuff that sounds very simplistic, but that is the basis that everything is built off of, is trusting the guy next to you and making sure that everybody out there knows their job. And when you can focus on your job and play with instinct and stop thinking, that's when you can play well. And that's when you can go out there and just play loose, play free, play fun, and have fun.
Bingo. The next show here at the Voice of College Football is just a few minutes away over on the Michigan channel with John D'Adamo hosting Michigan Wolverines live, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Get on over there, check out a Big Ten rival, trash talk, troll, do whatever you want to do, or be supportive. You can take either route. We don't care. Michigan Wolverines live, 8 p.m. Eastern time with John. And he's also got TJ Konerski from Ronin Sports Talk and Ferris Khan. They've got a great lineup there talking Michigan football.
Yep. And if you want to challenge market trivia.
Oh, we're going to bring that up?
I had to check that out a little bit.
Since we're there,
you got hosed
and we're going to write off last week as a warm-up. That's what we're going to do. Aren't we, Justin?
Some of those questions were ridiculous, and then you would get a question that was ridiculously hard, and then he would get a question that's so easy. Yeah, the mascot questions.
Those got to go. So It's Take Down the Voice of College Football. It's on the Big 12 channel. The Big 12 channel. Why on the Big 12 channel? We're trying to boost the Big 12 channel. So somebody came up with the idea, hey, and I've been hearing this for years, Mark, take trivia questions, challenge people. People will challenge you, show that you're the best and all that other business. And I am telling all of you that basically this is the time to take me down. I know less about college football today than I probably ever have. More has seeped out of this brain and left me. But after last week's warm-up, Justin, I did tell Joey, I said, no mascot questions. That's not real football.
The stadium questions were ridiculous too. Like the Coliseum, come on.
Yes. Coliseum. Well, yeah, it's the LA Coliseum. That's what we all know. USC football. Nobody follows what corporation threw them $100 million to put their name on the side of the stadium.
That changes LA Coliseum. All the time. Changes all the time.
That's right. I forgot about those stadium questions. But the mascots, no, I don't want. I want football questions. Who was the coach of the 1968? Who was the quarterback that did this? How many passes? All that. That's what I want. That's what we're looking for. So,
yep. So
then they're also making me play tic-tac-toe at the same time and try to.
That's the hard part. That's the kicker. I remember you saying that the tic-tac-toe is what's going to make you.
I didn't want that either. I just wanted a straight. We're just going to keep score.
Yeah, like a Jeopardy style.
I hit 20 of 28, and that's including all those ridiculous mascot questions.
Yeah,
so we'll do a little bit better this time.
So if you want to challenge Mark, now you know.
All right, folks. We do appreciate you being here. Make it on back next Tuesday, 7 Eastern, 6 Central. In the meantime, it's everything Nebraska here. You got the Big Ten show with Justin and with Sonny. It's the Big Ten show. You just pop it in the search bar right here on YouTube and track everything that they've got going with Big Ten football and basketball.
Yep. And appreciate everybody's support and support on both channels, this one and that one. So,
all right, folks, we will see you next time and have a great week.
Peace.